In this video, we are going to work together to go through a Bain & Company practice case. This case can be found on Bain's website, and I've included a link below in the video description. Feel free to give this case a try on your own. Before we begin, please give this video a quick like to help support the channel. So, we're looking at Coffee Shop Co. You're having lunch with an old friend from university, and she's looking for some business advice. She is thinking of opening a coffee shop in Cambridge, England, a large university city an hour and a half away from London. She sees potential in this business, but wants your help in determining whether opening a coffee shop is a good idea. What do you think? Case setup. Start any case by understanding the question you're asked to solve. Ask your interviewer questions if you feel confused or need more information. We want you to succeed in your interviews. Take the time, 1 to 2 minutes, to think about how you would approach the problem. Always structure your thinking and communicate your ideas with the interviewer. So the objective of the case is very clear. Our friend is thinking about opening a coffee shop in Cambridge, England, and she wants our help in determining whether opening the coffee shop is a good idea. So there are a couple of different questions that may be useful for us to ask at this point. The number one question I want to ask is to understand what our friend's goal is of opening up the coffee shop. Is there a particular revenue or profit figure she is trying to reach within a particular period of time? Another question I may ask is what type of coffee shop our friend is looking to open. Is it a premium coffee shop, or is it one focused on convenience and low price? Knowing this will help us identify what market our friend would be playing in and who the competitors are. Of course, there are many other questions we could ask, such as whether our friend has experience operating a coffee shop or asking how large the market opportunity is. But these questions will likely be covered in our framework that we develop. It looks like the sample questions Bain includes covers some of these. I personally think that these questions are a bit premature to ask. They jump right into trying to solve the case rather than asking clarifying questions to understand the case better. Alright, let's move on to creating a framework. For us to recommend opening up a coffee shop, 4 things need to be true. 1. The market needs to be attractive. 2. Ideally, the competitors would not be that strong so that we can capture meaningful market share. 3. Our friend would have the capabilities to operate a coffee shop well. And finally, 4. The coffee shop would be profitable. Looking at market attractiveness, it'd be helpful to know what the market size opportunity is of selling coffee in Cambridge. We'd also like to know the growth rate and average profit margins of coffee in that area. Looking at competitive landscape, it'd be helpful to know how many other shops sell coffee in the area that we are planning to open the store in. We'd like to know how much coffee market share these players capture and if they have any kind of competitive advantages. Looking at our friend's capabilities, it'd be helpful to know a number of different things. Does our friend have the financial backing to open a coffee shop? Do they have the experience operating and managing a coffee shop? And do they have relationships with suppliers to get high quality or low cost coffee beans? Finally, looking at profitability, it'd be helpful to project what the expected revenues or the expected costs are. From this, we can determine expected profits and how long it would take our friend to reach their financial goal or target. Looking at Bain's sample framework, it primarily revolves around looking at profit or revenue minus costs. It breaks down revenue into quantity and price, and it breaks down cost into fixed costs and variable costs. One thing I want to point out here is that nearly everyone knows this profit framework. It is probably one of the first frameworks that you learn when you begin preparing for case interviews. So, if you just use a framework like this, know that many of the other candidates that you are competing against are also probably using it. Therefore, you're probably not going to get any bonus points in your interview for creating a unique or tailored framework. 2. This sample framework only covers the quantitative aspects of the case. Of course, every single case interview could be solved by boiling down the case into a mathematical equation that calculates profits. However, outstanding frameworks will cover both quantitative and qualitative aspects. The qualitative aspects is what I feel this sample framework is really missing. Knowing things such as whether or not the market is attractive, how strong competitors are, and if our friend has the capabilities to succeed is equally as important as just crunching the numbers. Therefore, I like our framework better because it covers both the quantitative and qualitative aspects of the case. Let's move on. You show your proposed framework to your friend, and she really likes it. She's especially interested in figuring out how big the market is to best estimate how much coffee she can sell. She knows the market probably includes commuters, visitors, etc., but for now, she wants you to focus on Cambridge residents alone. How do you estimate the size of the market? Remember, there's always two major ways to do estimation or market sizing problems. You can either do a top-down approach, where you start with a large number and keep breaking it down and refining it until you get your answer, or you could do a bottom-up approach, where you start with a small number and build and multiply it up until you reach your answer. Yep, that is exactly the answer that Bain also gives. After you show her the potential options for estimating market size, she wants you to approximate the market size using your framework. Assume that Cambridge has a population of 100,000 people, and on average, each drinks 1 cup of coffee per day. Okay, so this exercise mentions focusing on Cambridge residents alone, so we can create an approach that starts with that. We can start with the number of people in Cambridge, then estimate the percentage of people that drink coffee. Then we can calculate the number of cups of coffee consumed per day, and then we can calculate the number of cups of coffee consumed per year. We need to remember that some people drink coffee at home while others drink coffee at coffee shops or stores. We need to estimate the percentage of cups consumed at coffee shops or stores. After doing this, we can estimate the average price per cup of coffee, and multiplying all of these things together will give us the market size of coffee in Cambridge. So, starting with 100,000 people in Cambridge, let's assume that 50% of people drink coffee. This estimate comes from the fact that we can rule out 20% of the population who are kids that don't really drink coffee, and among the remaining population, perhaps roughly a third do not drink coffee but instead drink tea or other beverages. This gives us 50,000 coffee drinkers in Cambridge. We are told that each drinks 1 cup per day, which gives us 50,000 cups of coffee per day. Multiplying this by 360 days per year, which is less than 365 to count for closing due to national holidays, we get 18 million cups of coffee per year. Let's assume half of these cups are purchased through coffee shops. This is just based on the personal experience of my coffee drinking behavior and that of my friends. So this gives us 9 million cups of coffee per year. If the average cup of coffee is perhaps 2 pounds, this gives us a market size of 18 million pounds. Let's see what the answer Bain provides looks like. So they also started with the number of people in Cambridge, they estimated the percentage that are adults, and then the percentage that drink coffee. They then multiplied this by the number of cups of coffee consumed per day, and then estimated the percentage of coffee made versus consumed at home, finally multiplying it by 350 days per year. So it looks like we had a very similar approach. One thing to note here is that the sample answer stops once the number of cups of coffee per year is calculated. Market size is typically expressed as annual revenues or spending in a year, so technically the sample answer should have multiplied the number of cups of coffee by average price per cup. If you are unsure whether to express your answer in annual revenues or number of units, you can always clarify this with the interviewer before you begin the market sizing exercise. Let's move on. Now that you have the market size, your friend wants to gain a better understanding of how much coffee she would need to sell to break even in her first year. How much coffee does she need to sell to break even in the first year? Here is some additional information. Price per coffee is £3. Cost to open shop is £245,610. Cost to run the shop each year is £163,740. And finally, the cost per cup of coffee is £1. This is a simple break-even question. For break-even questions, all you really need to do is set the formula for profit equal to 0 and solve for the unknown variable. So we know that profit equals price minus variable costs times quantity minus fixed costs. So we set profit equal to 0, which gives us price minus variable costs times quantity equals fixed costs. We now just need to plug in the information that was provided. So 3 pounds minus 1 pounds times the unknown quantity equals 245,610 pounds plus 163,740 pounds. Solving for this, quantity equals 204,675 to break even. Looking at the sample answer, we get the same number, so that's good. One thing to note here is that in an actual interview, it may be helpful to take the quantity of units needed to break even and divide that by the market size of the number of cups of coffee. This will give you the market share that the client needs to capture in order to break even. From this, you can look at the market shares of competitors to see if the needed market share is plausible or feasible to capture. So, if the market size is 7 million cups of coffee, which Bain provided to us, 204,675 is roughly 3%. This seems initially achievable, but we really need to compare this to the market shares of competitors to see if it is plausible. Moving on to the recommendation. After running through the calculations, do you think it's reasonable for her to open up a coffee shop? So here's how I would deliver the recommendation. I recommend that our friend can consider opening a coffee store in Cambridge, but should make additional considerations. There are 3 reasons that support this. 1. We calculated that our friend needs to capture 3% market share to break even. This seems feasible at initial glance, but we need to look at the market share and strength of competitors to understand whether this is truly a large or small market share, and whether our friend could outcompete competitors. 2. We need to understand our friend's capabilities and expertise. Can they manage and operate a coffee shop well? 3. We need to understand what our friend's financial goals are. Can we achieve the desired levels of profit within the targeted period of time? For next steps, I'd like to focus on 2 things. 1. Understand the value proposition of this coffee shop and how it would compete with competitors. 2. Estimate the annual profit to see if it is in line with our friend's goals. Let's take a look at the sample recommendations. Looking at the good answer first, I don't really like it for 3 reasons. 1. I think the recommendation is premature. 3% market share may be very difficult to capture depending on what the competitive landscape looks like. 2. The recommendation only provides 1 reason for support. And 3, there are no next steps included. Looking at the better answer, I also don't really like it for 2 reasons. 1, it doesn't actually provide a recommendation. It just says breaking even is achievable. It doesn't recommend opening up the store or not opening up the store. 2, it is not very structured. Remember, a simple but effective way to structure your recommendation is to state your recommendation, provide 2 to 3 reasons that support it, and then include a few next steps. So that brings us to the end of this case. Overall, it was a fairly straightforward market entry case, but there are a lot of case interview skills that you can practice from this, such as creating a framework, practicing market sizing, and calculating break-even. If you found this video helpful, please give this video a like and check out some of the other case interview videos on the channel.